Hey everyone, Dave Jeffers from Dave Jeffers Artist here. Just thought I'd do a little bit of live painting today and show you where I'm at. This is an 18 by 24 canvas, and this is acrylic that's on here now. Underneath that is some spray paint that I've used and some oil-based paints. And I'm going to start, this is kind of like my background. This is where I start. So I don't consider this really finishing at all or anything. See if I can turn this a little bit. There we go. This is just kind of the start for me. It would like to be if some people who didn't do this method just used a blank canvas. This is kind of how I start my paintings. So here we go. I am going to start with accentuating some of those colors that I see. Here we are. I'm going to start with the number 4 round brush. I'm dipping it into thinner. I know that's tough to see from where you are, so I'll just kind of tell you what I'm doing as I go along. Into some yellow. It's actually a combination of yellow ochre. And let's see what the other yellow is. The other yellow I'm using is just called Cadmium Yellow Hue. Cadmium Yellow Hue. And yellow ochre mixed. And I'm going to start working. Here we go. Hope you can see. I try to keep my big head out of the way. Let me give this a little turn. There we go. Now you'll see less of my head, I hope. There we go. Here we are. I think that's better. I'm going to start right over here. And this is kind of a new direction for me. Using more of the acrylic first, and then coming back with the oil paint. And I'm going to use a lot of thinner. I almost make mine like a, almost like watercolor before I'm done. Like there, I want people to be able to see it, but I don't want it to be the dominant part of my painting. There we go. So I'm going to use that and let that purplish color come back through. And create some of those beautiful color effects that almost happen automatically just because I'm heavily thinning this down, the thinner, and then going back over it. See, right now I can see that yellow is reacting nice with that red and that purple. And I'm getting some nice dark colors down in here, which is just what I hoped would happen. I'm going to use some white. I also use some of the white, if any of you are Bob Ross fans. I do use some of his paints. I like the magic white, he calls it. Magic white that I can mix with colors. And that just works nice for me for a mixing medium. That's how I refer to it. I want to make these reds pop out of here. There we go. And like most artists, some people ask me, where do you get the ideas for these abstracts, these contemporary paintings? A lot of times, because I painted so much now, so many paintings, and that really is a big part of it, it just kind of comes in my head. Isn't that weird? Now I do draw a lot too. I do some, I'll have to get some of those on this channel too. Some marker, pen and ink, on Bristol type paper, Bristol board I guess you'd call it. And I come up with designs all the time, and that does influence some of my paintings, because during that whole process, there are times I'll discover something very, very cool, a design that really worked out that I hadn't even intended, and that will find its way into my painting. There we go. See how that thinner breaks up this paint nicely. And give some really cool effects. Now because I use the spray paint underneath, you can see some of the things coming through here. These dots that are here, hope you can see that, are really from the spray paint. I use spray paint, I use a combination of spray paint and thinner to get different effects. Been doing that for years. And you can get some outstanding effects that. Well, got to get my head out of the way. Here we go. Let me step back this way. That's better. Let's see how much I was in the way. Yeah, pretty much all of it. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Here we go. There, to get that nice, not chalky effect, but that nice blending out effect. Sometimes I just take some of the thinner off, come back up in here, get it to the level I want, because I want some of that background to come on through here. That's pretty cool. In fact, it almost looks like a searchlight shooting up through there, doesn't it? I love that effect. I'm going to use some yellow ochre now. So, how you guys been doing during this pandemic? Hate to ask. Some people are doing okay. I am much encouraged by some of what I've been finding on how we are doing. Only took a year, didn't it? I remember when this first started and I started to really understand it a little bit, what this coronavirus was and how it affected people. And I remember saying to my wife at one point, we sat on the couch watching the news, getting scared half to death, that, you know what, it's going to take about a year before we get anywhere. And it's just about a year. In our area, they've taken a lot of the restrictions away. Most things are open. You can even go see a movie. You can only have 50 people in the movie at a time, but still, it seems almost normal, doesn't it? Boy, when this is over, when we've really taken coronavirus down to where you don't hear about it much anymore, we are really going to appreciate all those things that we took for granted, aren't we? It's amazing. When you don't have something, that you don't even think that something is important. Using a little bit of cadmium red now. Till you lose it. And then you're like, you know what? Never realized how much I'd missed that all these years. All of a sudden, you couldn't go see a movie. You couldn't go to your favorite restaurant. You couldn't go, you couldn't visit with people. This digital age we're in has made that, where people, they had all these Facebook friends. And we all missed contact when it wasn't available. When we could do it and we didn't have to, we kind of shrugged it off. But when we lost the ability to do that, how we realized how much we really need each other. And how Facebook friends just don't cut it in the real world, do they? They just don't cut it. And I've learned my lesson. I don't have a mom and dad to visit anymore. They passed away long ago. But I do have people we could visit, and I just don't. I'm thinking all the time, I'm just too busy for that. Then you can't do it, and you think back, and you're like, I wish I had visited. I wish I had taken advantage of that time. And it's like you said, till you lose it, you don't know you even need it. It's just the way people are, isn't it? Isn't that amazing? But now, got a little bit of, actually I don't know what color blue this is. It's one I picked up somewhere because I just liked the intensity of it. Check that out. Woo! So in this abstract painting I'm doing now, I really don't have anything what you would call, I guess, real in mind. In other words, this is not an abstract of a building or an abstract of whatever. It is really just a design I've come up with in my head. Of course, like I said, I do a lot of sketching too. Those are all original too. I'll have to get some of those sometime and leaf through some of them for you. You can kind of see some of the influences I use. Yeah, I like that where it breaks up right there. I think I'm going to leave that. That's some intense blue. I don't think I'm even going to weaken that at all with thinner or anything. I'm going to let that keep coming. So I have had a lot more time to paint, I'll tell you that. But there was a time we couldn't be with our grandson. And, if your grandfather or grandmom, you know that that's not good. You want to see those little guys. We got a new grandson too. We were able to see him, so that's wonderful. He was born when when the restrictions weren't as bad. Couldn't go to the hospital or anything, but that's okay. We got to see him very shortly after he was born. But we couldn't see our first grandson, who was born a little while ago. He's almost 2 now. And he is a ball. This is the only room I haven't let him come in. Can you imagine him getting loose in here? Whoa. That could be tragic. Yes, it could. Because when he gets to a new place, I tell you what, boy, he wants to investigate. Yes, he does. He wants to get into everything. It's just the way he is. This is the yellow ochre again. I'm going to lighten that up a little bit. Get some tonal values in here. Very often in these abstracts, I love working back and forth with the different tones. You know, creating make-believe focal points. You put a little bit of white on there, rub the most of it off, and then come back in here. Still using the number 4 round. Finding that, like, so I can use this long thing, get out of the way of the picture. There we go. Got to yell at me every time I do that, getting in the way again. There we go. Oh, I didn't tell you guys, I actually won an art contest recently. Entered a gallery down here in Buffalo, New York. Western New York Artist Group. And took a couple of my abstracts. First time I'd actually, a new group I joined, just had joined the Western New York Artist Group. And much to my surprise, I won first place. Hey, hey, hey. You know, artists every now and then, and even though it doesn't matter really what other people think of your work, unless you're trying to sell a lot of it, then it matters. Then again, maybe not. You got to do you got to be true to yourself and do what's inside your heart. I'm gonna rub some of that out there. I want some of that. There we go. I want that to keep coming through. Let's get some of that paint off of there. Just rubbing it on a rag, getting some of the paint off and coming back in here. So that will show through still. There we go. That's better. I'll that up in here. Like that. Searchlight kind of effect going out here. Turning out better than I thought it would. Sometimes when you start something, you just don't know where you're going to wind up at all. In this case, I wasn't sure whether I'd like this effect. Had it in my head, you know, like a lot of artists do. Very often an artist comes to the easel, to where they're going to start painting. They do have some kind of an idea in their head, even if it's just subconsciously. All of our experiences do put pictures in our head, and sometimes they wind up coming out on the canvas. I purposely not painted a lot about COVID. I had one painting I did back in the beginning of COVID. You know, one day when I was really feeling a little bit down, and when it was the early onset of COVID, and you know, we were trapped in our house and we didn't even know if we should go outside. We were afraid to even take a walk. We didn't know how bad this was. And I wrote COVID, A New World Dawning, because I knew, even looking at it, I didn't know exactly how it was going to, but it's going to change life forever, isn't it? Everyone knows that COVID has affected life forever. We'll never be the same as we were a year ago when it started. We think differently now about some things. You know, for sure I bet you a lot of people are going to start visiting people more. Should I keep my head out of there? Yeah, okay, here we go. I'm putting some yellow ochre in with the white I put on earlier. Kind of match a little bit more of this yellow I got down here. I kind of like that idea. And this is so heavy influenced with the thinner I'm using, odorless thinner, that it'll dry quickly. And I'll wind up going over this a few times. It's about 2 hours. This will be pretty much, I could rub my hands over it. I kind of like that. Isn't that funny? I work with oil paint like watercolor, but I really don't enjoy doing watercolor that much. You think I would. You think I'd enjoy it more because I'm showing some of it, you know, kind of the... Here, I paint like it's watercolor sometimes. But when I do actual watercolor, I certainly, you know... Watercolorists, people who are good at watercolor, I really admire because it's a very unforgiving thing. You got to be able to work fast. You got to be, you know, you are building up layers, but you got to be able to be very sure of what you're doing. Where oil painting is very forgiving. I can make a huge mistake, or what I consider a mistake on here, and I can come back and fix it. I can take my knife and scrape it away like it was never there. Sometimes not as easy, I found out, when you're doing a watercolor. You got to go over it to get rid of it, and so you need to be a lot more sure of yourself. I'm not sure watercolor is a good experimenter's paint medium. I think that's more for artists who are really kind of know what they're going to do, and they've played a lot with the medium. Someday I may try it again. I'm having so much fun with acrylic and combinations of acrylic and oil right now that I'm just not thinking that much about it. Enjoying what I'm doing. So for now, I'm going to be right here. Kind of like that. That's a good start. Who knows what I'm going to do with all this. See all this area here? This was done with a palette knife. You probably can tell how it skips off the surface. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. Some of that will come through, but I may wind up covering a lot of that as I work my tones in there and go back and forth. So we'll have to see where that winds up. I'm enjoying myself, as always. Guys, it was so much fun talking with you. I don't want to take up too much of your time. As I get this painting a little bit further along, I will come back and show it to you again and show you can see where I'm at. All right. Thank you guys so much for showing up and spending some time with me today. Enjoy, stay safe. I'll talk with you guys later.